like the pine trees lining the winding road. I've got a name. I've got a name.
Nick Costco's in a kind of smooth out mode this morning. Yeah, it's a nice day out. We're going to kind of ease you into your Saturday morning after that craziness of the Rack and Fin radio with Tom P. He gets a little excited. Billy Schweim does too, so we're kind of your coffee drinking hour here. Kind of get yourself situated here on a Saturday morning. We appreciate you spending part of your weekend with us here on the South Jersey Sports Report. Yeah, taking it way back. Right now, as we do this time every week, we're going to welcome in Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Sully. I guess there's nothing like a little Jim Croce on a Saturday morning.
You can't go wrong with that.
Though I would have maybe gone with operator to lead in, and then play out with a little bad Leroy Brown, maybe. So there you go.
There you go. How was your Christmas, man?
Excellent. As I just said to somebody, you can never complain about Christmas. I mean, one of the great days of the year, and whatever happens on that day, it's all good.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice little couple days break, especially for us high school sports reporters, to kind of catch our breath and forget about the business of high school sports for a couple days. And you definitely need that recharge to get going into January.
Well, it's actually about a 24-hour break because while the rest of the world kind of slows down, high school sports picks up over Christmas. I mean, we were right back in the gym on the 26th, with the Score at the Shore tournament at Southern Regional, and then down at the Boardwalk Basketball Classic at the Wildwoods Convention Center. Tons of wrestling stuff going on. So, the Christmas break is not a break for high school athletes and coaches.
Well, at least you get a day or two, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So we'll try to take a deep breath. And obviously there's a ton going on in January. When you talk about high school basketball, we're going to jump right into it with the Seagull Classic next weekend and some really great games coming up. Just in conference play in the Cape Atlantic League, I was just taking a quick look at Wildwood Catholic's schedule. They got some really tough games coming up in the next 18 to 20 days.
Yeah, I saw Wildwood Catholic earlier this week. Great game with Camden before a great crowd down at the Boardwalk Basketball Classic. Camden jumped out to a lead, a double-digit lead. Wildwood Catholic came storming back, cut it to 1, cut it to 2. Couldn't quite get over the hump. Camden wins, by 3 points down there in Wildwood. It was just a great game. We have Camden number 2 in South Jersey, Wildwood Catholic number 3. And I kind of finished my story that ran in the paper and at pressofac.com, saying, it was a learning experience for Wildwood Catholic. It was a chance for them to measure themselves against one of, South Jersey's best teams. But their schedule is so tough. They don't have to wait long to put into practice what they've learned in the previous game. Tonight they play Archbishop Carroll, Pennsylvania, another quality opponent at the Wildwood Convention Center, the Boardwalk Basketball Classic. And you just alluded to it, their schedule at the Patrick School, St. Joe and Pleasantville in conference, Moorestown at another showcase event. Just about every weekend they're involved in a showcase event, and they play in that Cape Atlantic League United Division with them, St. Joe, Pleasantville, Middle Township, Cape May Tech, Buna. That's probably one of the better divisions in all of South Jersey. So definitely, a challenging schedule for Wildwood Catholic.
It's funny because I was looking at their schedule going, man, look at all these tough games. And by the same token, the other teams are probably saying, oh, boy, we got Wildwood Catholic coming in this week.
Yeah, I mean, Wildwood Catholic, they've kind of lived up to the hype so far this season, despite the loss to Camden, which was just a great game. The only troubling thing I think that they would point to is a little bit of a tendency to get off to slow starts. They did it against Pleasantville in a win that they got at Wildwood Catholic. They were trailing Pleasantville in the third quarter and then, really pulled away, dominated the last, 11, 12 minutes of that game and ended up winning by double digits. Kind of the same thing against Camden. They got off to that slow start. Camden really dominated the game with their interior rebounding and defense. A good-looking sophomore for Camden, Taquan Woodley, double-digit rebounds, double-digit points. I think he had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks. it was kind of a weird game because Camden was getting the better of the play, and you thought Camden should have been winning by more, but they were only winning by 8 to 12 points. They kind of allowed Wildwood Catholic to hang in, and then Wildwood Catholic got going. Jacob Hopping hit a 3. Taj Speed, I think, had 16 points, 9 rebounds. He kind of got going. And again, Wildwood Catholic cut that lead to 1 in the fourth quarter, and then they got to within 2 in the final minute, but they just could never get over the hump. So, disappointing loss for Wildwood Catholic, but, you're okay with those types of losses in December as long as they make you better for March, which is the purpose.
We're talking with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, taking a look at the Cal standings, one team really jumps out at me. I know you've been high on this team early in the season, Lower Cape May. You said they were going to be a lot better this year. They're off to a 6-1 start. They're right there in first place in the Cal National. Is this a team that can contend the entire season with the likes of Spirit, Mainland, and Ocean City?
Yeah, absolutely, and really a neat story down there at the Boardwalk Basketball Classic yesterday. Lower Cape May wins the George Holden Memorial bracket. George Holden, of course, is the legendary coach of Lower Cape May, the father of Pat Holden and Scott Holden. Pat is the former Lower Cape May coach. Scott currently coaches Lower Cape May. He's the grandfather. George is the grandfather of Lauren Holden and Pat Holden's son. Pat, two players who had great careers at Lower Cape May. So they have George passed away, recently, and so the Boardwalk Basketball Classic, as it does a great job naming their tournament brackets after people have made big contributions to basketball and the community down in Cape May. And Lower Cape May goes down and wins the George Holden bracket, and really so a nice story for Lower Cape May. And I think what you're seeing in Lower Cape May, and this is when you talk about the Cape Atlantic League tournament, I think you've kind of got Lower Cape May, you've got Holy Spirit at 5-2 off to a good start. You've got Mainland, who quietly, has played well at the beginning of the season. That they played a very tough game with Pleasantville in the Score at the Shore tournament. I think they lost 59-51 this week. You got a Mainland team that played Millville tough on the opening night of the season. And you've got an Ocean City team that'll be in action, I believe, tomorrow and Monday at the Boardwalk Basketball Classic. So I think you look at those 4 teams in that national division, 2 of them are going to get into the Cape Atlantic League tournament, and a third might have a shot at a wild card.
So, Mike, who won the Mike McGarry Memorial Tournament down there?
We're not memorialized yet. Hopefully, I've got a long way to go before that happens. I know I have a tendency to have too many Diet Cokes, but I'm doing my best. I get out there, I run every day. I'm trying to stave off the Memorial moniker as long as I can.
Well, I'm sure one day they'll have a bracket named after you for all you've done for the Cape Atlantic League over the past 25, 30 years. And obviously you've been around a while. What's your feeling so far on this season? It's shaping up to be really one of the most exciting basketball seasons we've had in quite a while. When you look at the boys and the girls, I mean, there's so many teams that are so evenly matched in those second and third place spots in these divisions.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things you do is you try to look at the schedule ahead for January, and you try to plan out, okay, well, what am I going to cover here? What sort of story am I going to do here? And the thing that stuck out with me is just about every night in January, it's almost like, when am I going to take a day off? Because every day in January, there's a big game or a great game that says, hey, I want to see that game, or I want to see this player, or I want to see this team. So it's really going to pick up. And, on the girls' side, you've got, Mainland Regional at 7-0 with Kylie Watson doing a great job playing through foul trouble. They beat a good Lenape team, 69-61 yesterday. Was at that game. That story's in the Press of Atlantic City today and online. As Mainland goes to 7-0, wins their third straight Score at the Shore tournament at Southern Regional, and Kylie Watson gets the MVP. And I think Kylie Watson, what kind of stood out, you go to games and you see something different from players as great as Kylie is. In foul trouble yesterday, the last 6 minutes of the game, she plays with 4 fouls, and in those last 6 minutes, she grabs 10 rebounds.
Wow.
Scores 10 points, grabs 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks, all with 4 fouls. in the final 6 minutes of the game to help get Mainland over the top in that game. So really just a great job seeing her kind of play, with 4 fouls and stay in the game. And as after the game, she finished the game on the court, and she just gave me a big smile and said success because, and not only did she last and not foul out, but she kind of took over the game in those final 6 minutes also.
Well, that's going to be one thing that's really interesting about her career, Mike, is she's going to have to learn to play with a lot of fouls because what I've noticed, towards the end of last year and through the first couple of games this year, she tends to get these offensive fouls called on her that aren't really fouls because she's making moves that I don't think high school refs are really used to, and it looks like a foul at first, like an offensive foul, but really the defender's not moving their feet to be set, and so she's kind of getting some cheap offensive fouls called on her. So it's good to see her learning that, okay, this is going to happen to me because of what I'm able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and that's one of the points that she brought out yesterday is when she had 4 fouls, she just wanted to stay under control on the offensive end and not pick up the 5th foul on a charge or something like that. I mean, I think, she's in a situation where at 6'4", 6'5", she often towers over the other opponents. I think sometimes, she picks up some fouls that, wouldn't be fouls or are not going to be fouls at the next level, put it to you like that. So, but she played great yesterday. And also what kind of Mainland Regional girls showed in that tournament was they're more than Kylie Watson. I came away impressed by a freshman, Cameron Dirks. I mean,
yeah, she's a heck of a player.
Yeah, she played great. Her ability to sort of penetrate defenses with her dribble and create some offense for herself and teammates is really going to help Mainland out. And then, of course, Claudia Marone and Maddie Heffitz, sank some huge three-pointers yesterday. And it's not easy. I mean, a couple of games I've seen, Middle Township and Lenape up at Southern Regional, they sort of surround Kylie in the paint, and they sort of dare the other players to shoot from the perimeter. And you've got to step up and take them. And if you miss 1 or 2 or 3 in a row, you got to keep taking them. And that's not easy all the time. But Claudia and Maddie did it yesterday, and I think Claudia hit 5 threes and Maddie hit 4 in the second half. They were all huge. And when Mainland, gets that and shoots that well from the perimeter, they're one of the top teams in South Jersey.
Yeah, it was funny, Mike. I was talking to Danielle Donahue and Emma Finnegan of Ocean City before they played Mainland, and I said, how are you going to defend Kylie Watson? They're like, I don't know. We got 4 days to figure it out, but we're not really sure. Because, you collapse on her, and there's 3 shooters out there.
And so far from what I've seen is the teams have chosen, it's kind of a pick-your-poison type of deal. They've kind of chosen to surround Kylie and let some of the other players beat you. And so far the Mainland girls have stepped up and been able to do exactly that. And I think the addition of Dirks, the freshman, I wrote about her this week. I guess in her first game against Atlantic City, she got, hit in the eye. Then a couple plays later, she took a shot to the nose. She's playing with a face guard now like Joel Embiid, basically. And, just a tough kid and a real athletic kid who's really added another dimension to that team.
Mike, real quick before we let you go, I know you're going to be at the Seagull Classic next week. Any particular game really on your radar? I mean, there's so many great matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that Patrick School versus Wildwood Catholic is a great game. I think St. Augustine versus Morristown, I think it's going to be one of the better games. Morristown, I believe, was undefeated coming into the Christmas break. St. Augustine, of course, 4-0. St. Augustine will play today up at Bayonne in that Skyline Classic game against a team from Terrytown, New York. So I'd kind of be really interested to see how St. Augustine sort of plays against Morristown. I saw St. Augustine beat Toms River North early in the on their opener, the first Saturday of the season at Tom Williams Ocean City PBA tip-off weekend. I'm kind of interested to see how that translates. I think you got Mainland Gloucester Catholic girls. Gloucester Catholic's got a girl going to Duke. You got Kylie Watson, one of the nation's top recruits. You're kind of interested to see that game. So there's and then of course it finishes up with the Holy Spirit boys, who are at 5-2. And maybe a little underrated, Christian Kalinowski, Jake LaMonica, Holy Spirit, their ability to shoot the ball from the perimeter. I don't know if we thought we were going to see them be as good as they are so far this season, They're 5-2, and they'll be playing Pleasantville, finishing it up on that Sunday night. So, that'll be a great game to sort of end the Seagull Classic. So those are just a couple of great games you're going to see over 3 days at Holy Spirit, and that's what I talk about. When do you take a day off? Because there's a great game every day in January during the winter sports season.
Mike, any New Year's resolutions before we go?
A half a less of Diet Coke a day and some more water. That's about it. Because I got to stave off the memorial stuff.
Right.
So you already got me memorialized. I got another 25 years in me. I got 2 kids in college. I can't stop now. All right.
There you go. Great stuff as always, Mike. We appreciate it, man. We'll see you next weekend down at the Seagull.
All right, Sully. See you down the road. Thanks for a few.
You got it. Thanks, Mike.